I'm Celia Farber. You're listening to Radio Free Science on the Progressive Radio Network. Well, we got a situation. We have a very special guest today. You may have read the story of his situation, his drama in Italy, Dr. Marco Ruggiero, who is very well known and very well loved in many circles internationally, cancer circles, AIDS circles, academic circles, suddenly not so loved in those circles that devote seemingly all of their time to sniffing out and crushing what they call denialism against the HIV/AIDS paradigm. This is a long-standing tradition that has so much that has never been brought to light, and either we're going to have the energy to bring it to light one day or we're not. But it is a history that is in direct tradition and keeping with the history of persecution against dissidents in former dictatorships, communist dictatorships. Most is what it resembles, I think, most closely. In other words, the identification of thinking against the state is pathologized. Those people who have any opposition to the state are then persecuted with vigor and license within the illegitimate state. And AIDS has erected such an illegitimate state inside of which it has relentlessly persecuted scientists and journalists and academics for over 25 years and really gone after them where it hurts, getting them fired, denouncing them, destroying their reputations, and most recently a new little outcropping, a new kind of trick, which is to launch an investigation into a scientist's conduct at the university. Well, they did that against Peter Duesberg, who needs probably no introduction. They did that about 2 years ago. He's had a flawless record at Berkeley. He's not loved for his position on HIV, namely that it's non-pathogenic, but he has a flawless record as a professor, a tenured professor. Nonetheless, along came an accusation of scientific misconduct. It was never clear who, and Professor Duesberg kept saying, who, what, who? That's one of the characteristics of fascist persecution, is that the attackers reserve the right to remain anonymous. And so the first step is to spread a vague terror. They've decided something bad has happened. They've decided somebody's going to get in trouble. Anyway, after 2 years of fantastic just expense and trouble and angst, Peter Duesberg was fully exonerated. And one would have thought that would have put an end to that kind of frivolous stuff. But I heard last Friday after last week's show, somebody told me and we know who they are, they're going after Marco Ruggiero. I said, are they really? And I emailed him and I said, Dr. Ruggiero, are you allowed to tell me what's going on? And he said, I'll contact you Monday. And on Monday, I got a bunch of emails, and then we spoke on the phone. And what came to light was a story that was so much more hopeful, actually, than anything I was expecting. I was expecting, there's been a dreary and secret tribunal that's gone after, and now Professor Ruggiero has to be dragged through. Soon as I got him on the phone, the first thing he said was, well, I'm suing them. I have sued them. Not only that, I have sued them in criminal court. In Italy, libel is a crime, which really changes everything. And we're going to talk about a lot of things on this show. Professor Ruggiero, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Thank you, Celia. Yes, I can hear you, and I thank you for this invitation. I hope that the distance will not be a difficulty. Anyway, I try to do my best. I can hear you loud, and if you can hear me, please go ahead.
Okay. Glad we have you right there. And now we're going to also be joined by David Rasnick from Berkeley, who is my co-host on the show. Dave, are you there?
I'm here, Celia. Yeah.
Okay, welcome. So, I'm not sure if I left out some critical information there in my introduction, but I think I did. What we're talking about, I'll be brief, is that there was an anonymous group of people, we still don't know who they are, and they filed first of all, let me introduce Dr. Marco Ruggiero. He is a full professor at the University of Firenze in Italy. He's a PhD in molecular biology, an MD, a radiologist. His expertise is in cell biology in relation to the immune system, cancer, and HIV infection. He's got 30 years at the University of Firenze, and I actually looked through all the records. They keep very careful academic records in Italy. He has what an honest person could only call a flawless record. So, the tribunal, they were from an HIV group, an internet-based group, and they said, we oppose Marco Ruggiero's dalliance with HIV denialism, which they listed chapter and verse, and we want you to investigate, the usual denunciations. This is killing people. But there were also some unusual accusations in this letter. And Dr. Ruggiero, would you tell us simply, it was a long letter. It was 3 pages. I know you came upon it on the Internet. What jumped out at you when you first read it? What were the worst accusations that were made by the Invisible Tribunal against you, writing to the rector of your university?
Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit of background of this story. This letter was first posted as a comment to a Nature News piece on that paper published with Peter Duisberg and Dr. Rasnick too on AIDS, mainly AIDS in Africa. We published this paper in the Italian Journal of Anatomy and Embryology, and it was accepted after a peer review. And it made a big fuss. So Nature wrote 2 pieces to Nature News on that paper. On the second piece written in Nature, in the comments body under the nickname of Dora, which is a female name in Italian, but it is obviously a nickname, wrote that letter, which is full of defamation, and sent that letter to the rector of the University of Florence and to many other authorities, to many journals and other politicians and so. And so when I first read it, I couldn't believe my eyes because it was filled with defamations, ad hominem attacks, and claims that they suggested that I was somehow recruiting people online as if to discourage them to take antiretroviral drugs, which is something obviously false, and it is also childish. And so after we read that letter together with my attorney, we decided that that was defamatory, that was an attack against my reputation based on completely false premises, and so there was enough ground for a legal case, a criminal suit, which is exactly what we did. Please let me know if I can proceed.
Please proceed.
Okay, after that, many things happened, and all of them were very, very welcomed. First of all, I can tell you now that the website, which is called HIV Forum, from which this person under the nickname of Dora wrote that letter, has been closed. Officially, it has been closed for maintenance now for 3 or 4 days. And my attorney said that there are 2 or 3 possibilities. One is that the police forced them to close it, or the second is that the administrators or the members of that forum disassociated from this Dora and decided to close the website. Whatever the reason, the point is that that website is closed. Then we learned that that website was not a transparent one, but it was under a proxy domain, so we actually don't know whether this HIV forum really represents an association of an X numbers of HIV positive people, as in this letter they claim, or it is simply one person. So this is impossible to know because of the nature of that website. And as I told you, the website is now closed. However, the rector of the university, I think he had the duty to investigate, because not only my name was defamated, but also the name of the university, because in that letter there was an open allegation that the university was somehow tolerating something wrong. And so we all think that the rector did the good thing to promote an internal investigation, just to make it crystal clear that none of us, neither myself nor the university, has done anything wrong. Please let me know if I can proceed.
I just
want
I want you to proceed. I just want to cut in with the wording, the preposterous, I have to say preposterous wording of the lead of the article that came out in Nature.com earlier this week by a reporter named Zoe Corbin. Her lead went like this. The University of Florence has launched an inquiry into the teaching activities of an academic who assisted on a course that denies the causal link between HIV and AIDS and supervised students with dissertations on the same topic. And what's outrageous is the word launched. In other words, it sounds like the university itself launched this inquiry as opposed to being there when it was launched upon them and dealing with the situation in a reasonable way, which is, as you just said, they formed a commission, right? Because that's protocol. Am I correct?
Yes, you are perfectly correct. And you are right in saying that the University of Florence didn't launch anything. They simply set up an internal commission not to investigate on me, but to investigate whether those allegations in that defamatory letter had any ground, because they want to clear not only my name, but also, of course, the name of the university. And so, even so, you may wonder how is it possible that an anonymous letter, probably written by a single individual, triggers all this. You also have to consider that the reputation of a very ancient university is at stake, because many people, as of today, do not realize that that letter is an anonymous letter written by a single person. It does not represent an association of even 2 people. So we don't even know whether that person is HIV positive or not, whether that person exists. By absurdity, I could have written that letter if I was somehow masochistic, because under the curtain of anonymity, or you, Celia, or Dr. Rasnick might have written that letter, because under the curtain of anonymity, everybody could have done that. So the police will probably find out, but that's their job, their duty. I don't want to comment on this. So the university did not launch any investigation. The university simply is doing whatever they can to demonstrate that no one, neither the individual as I am, nor the institution has done anything wrong, and we are all complying with all the rules, regulations, and our code of conduct.
My father has a phrase for situations like this: an orgasm in search of a wedding. I'm looking at this piece again by Zoe Corbin, and for me, what I latch onto as a journalist is the increasingly strange forms that journalism are taking, and never stranger than so-called science journalism. Who wagged who? What set what in motion? How is this a story? How did this come to pass? If I could just get into that boiler room and find these things out. That's what I hunger for. How these very obviously, transparently rigged stories come out that are just non-stories, except in this obscure subculture where it remains a crime and a very ugly thing, and maybe even a criminal thing, to doubt HIV's pathogenesis, which so many thousands openly do all over the world, including, as you pointed out, Professor Luc Montagnier, credited widely as the, quote, discoverer of HIV. But let's get back to your situation. Dave, I know you had a question for Dr. Ruggiero. Were you in the middle of finishing one piece of the narrative that we shouldn't derail perhaps right now? I know you were saying that you filed criminal charge. Actually, I do have a question. Does it change your feeling or actions that the website is down? Does it change anything?
Well, today, two very positive things happened, but before telling you about this, let me publicly thank you all. When I say you all, I mean the thousands of people who support my freedom of teaching and my freedom of research, whom I didn't know. Of course, I know you, I know Dr. Rasnick, I know Dr. Professor Duisberg, and many other friends, but I didn't know that there are so many people, I think there are in the range of thousands, who I never met, who are writing over the internet to support my cause. Absolutely. I can tell you the director is receiving many, many letters, and these times they are signed letters of real people, of journalists, of writers, of HIV patients, of scientists, doctors, researchers, and all these people, and I don't know many of them. They felt the urge, once they learned about all this situation, to write to the rector in Italian. Some of them are almost illiterate, but nevertheless they felt the urgency to write to the rector, not in my support, because I don't reserve that, but in support of a free teaching and the freedom of research. So I feel an immense depth of gratitude for all these people, not only the people whom I know, like you, but all these people whom I don't know. And if I may go ahead, please. I wish to tell you a couple of very, very recent developments. Today I learned that the website is down, and also I learned that somebody from Argentina, whom I never met, has launched an online petition that I linked to an email to you early this morning, an online petition for me. And what surprises me is that I don't know these people. I don't know this guy from Argentina, so he's not a friend of mine, but evidently he learned about this thing and he felt to launch this online petition that I think you have seen. So all this reassures me a lot and makes me feel somehow happy that all this is happening, because it demonstrates that except for a few people who are obscured by some reason, I don't know, most people, even those who are not acquainted with the problem, they feel that even voices of dissent should not be silenced. And so I think this is a very positive development.
That's fantastic news, and I can confirm that there are so many people who feel and have felt for so many years that there's something much bigger at stake even than the answers to the illness called AIDS, the answers about HIV, because this whole situation has brought into our liberal Western democratic societies something very terrible and very threatening, which is just forms of violence that are totally unfamiliar to scientists and totally unfamiliar to Western journalists until recently. These persecution campaigns, there is no way that one can defend them morally, but those who do defend them morally do so on purely fascist grounds, i.e., the end result justifies this. HIV causes AIDS. That is that. And they actually have printed out, have it in front of me. There was a conference that I think was the official turning point where they said we're going to launch a McCarthyism and we're going to get organized. It was in 2006 at the Toronto AIDS conference, and the AIDS Orthodox, high priests all got up on a panel and they said, we're going to talk about how to stamp out dissent, how to find it, how to get others to hunt for it. Call your local newspaper, protest be on the lookout for denialist letters, try to get people fired. Maybe if there's time later on, I'll read a couple of particularly juicy outtakes from this. But I'm trying to say that there has been a formalized system since before 2006, but they really got almost put up a flag and around it in 2006. So this is not incidental or random. This is totally in keeping with what's been happening, and many have been persecuted who didn't have the fortune of being in Italy, which is really seeming to be in this whole drama the land of the greatest scientific freedom. Dave, would you say that Italy is pretty much as good as it gets?
Yeah, I'm very proud of the Italians and their fight for and respect for freedom of speech. I'd like to ask Professor Ruggiero, this is Dave Rasnick. Can you tell us a little bit about the legal action that you're taking?
Well, I cannot go into details because, as you know, once legal action has started, you have to leave the legal people to do their work without interference. However, I can tell you how it works in Italy in general terms. It is a criminal offense to defamate somebody in public, either through media or through television or newspapers. This is a criminal offense. It's not a civil one, it is a criminal one, and if you feel that you have been defamated, the lawyer can go to court for you, and he can sue the people who have defamated you. This criminal offense can be punished for up to 1 year in prison, plus you can ask for whatever sum of money you think it is appropriate to repair for your reputation. And the judge will judge whether this sue is appropriate or not. However, it is not something that you can joke with. I make an example. If I say that you are a thief, for example, and you then sue me because of defamation, but then it is demonstrated that you are actually a thief because you have been condemned for robbery or something like that, then it is you are criminally at fault. In other words, in Italy with our judicial system, these are things that you cannot joke with. So before you sue somebody for defamation, you have to be sure, and it is better that the lawyer is sure, that this sue has legal ground. Otherwise, you run the risk of being condemned for calumniation, it is called. So my lawyer, when I saw the letter, he said, as Celia has written, I wish that all my cases were as easy or as transparent as this one, because my lawyer said, here we have everything that we need to sue this anonymous accuser for defamation. And the judge, of course, will be the last one who will decide whether my lawyer and myself are right or not. We are convinced that we are right. Not only that, there is also another, let's say, principle that if somebody tells you that you are a liar or a thief, and you do not react, somehow you implicitly admit that you have done something wrong. And this is something that we cannot tolerate. So if somebody tells me that I am a dissident or I am a denialist, that's fine. I accept this. I accept whatever ferocious criticism, and I accept it. And I will be happy to discuss with the most ferocious critic. But I do not accept slander or defamation. And I fight back, because if I don't, I implicitly admit that I have done something wrong, and this I couldn't do. I don't know if I'm being clear, because I know little about legal terms.
You're being very clear. I applaud you, and I reached the same border, having been attacked for many, many years. But in 2008, there was a series of emails and letters and so forth that were sent out to several organizations, one of whom was going to give me an award for my journalism. And in this defamation, it was stated that I was a known liar and a known fraud, and I fabricate scientific quotes. And I knew then that I had to fight back, and I had to file a libel lawsuit, and I did. And the case is still pending. And in the United States, we don't have this law. I wish we did, because what people say in the United States, first of all, everybody says libel is very difficult. It's made even more difficult if you're a public figure or a quasi-public figure of any kind. It brings to mind, actually, in the Jewish religion, there is a deeply held tenet that libel is a form of murder, because it cannot be undone. That if you destroy someone's reputation, it's on the moral scale of murder. So many cultures take it very seriously. Our culture does not, and it's all, as so many things in America, it's all about money. So first of all, you have to have money or raise money to file a libel lawsuit. Everybody talks themselves and each other out of it. But I fully applaud you for taking this step, because it also makes it that much safer for all the other critics, forget critics, real scientists of whatever topic, now and in the future, to voice their dissent from orthodoxy. So your action is going to continue to reverberate.
Marco, since your accusers were anonymous, does your lawyer actually have individuals? You don't have to name them unless it's all right, of individuals that you're taking action against?
Well, I tell you again how it works in general terms. And of course, my lawyer is not the secret police, so my lawyer doesn't know who the author of an anonymous letter is, of course. However, if the judge accepts our sue, then the judge will charge it is called a postal police, because in ancient times they dealt with mail, and now they deal with internet crimes and so. So we'll charge the police to discover the author of the letter, and this is much easier. This is much easier than what many people think, because the letter was written in Italian first. So this means that he or she is an Italian. They will find out in a matter of 5 minutes from which computer the letter was written. They will find out in a matter of minutes who are the legal responsible of the forum, and probably this is why they closed down the forum, but it is too late. And so the police will find out the authors. Of course, if there will be a trial at some point in time, the trial will not be against an anonymous, the trial will be against a real person.
Right.
And that's why you have to be very careful when you do these things, because if the judge accepts our suit, then more than 10 people will be involved, policemen, computer experts, so many people will be involved. So you better have solid ground, otherwise they will come after you because you are wasting state's money for something that is irrelevant. That's why you have to be careful. However, the lawyer told me, and I think I'm not disclosing any secret, that our police, and I think your police too, they have programs that you can reformat your computer, not only put in the wastebasket the files and cancel them, but you can reformat your computer 7 times. And after 7 times that you have reformatted your computer, they're still able to retrieve all the data that they wish. So in this era, you cannot hide. Therefore, anonymity is just an illusion. People are not anonymous, and if the judge decides that they have done something against the law, they will be found. There is no doubt about this.
Oh, I love it. Gentlemen, we have to take a break. We will be right back and continue this fascinating conversation. This is Radio Free Science. I'm Celia Farber. This is the Progressive Radio Network. I'm Celia Farber. Welcome back. This is Radio Free Science on the Progressive Radio Network. I'm joined by Professor Marco Ruggiero in Florence, Italy. Hi. Hello, are you there? You're still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. I can hear you. And Dr. David Rasnick in Berkeley, California. Where were we before the break? We are discussing the fascinating case of Dr. Ruggiero has been an anonymous group of we don't know what entities, several, have launched what to many of us is a familiar charge. I call it's mostly thought crime. In other words, do you know that this professor denies that HIV is the cause of AIDS, and so on and so forth. But it also has some more spurious and serious charges, totally false, namely that he solicited patients over the Internet to try to get them off ARV drugs and onto his treatment, which we will be discussing in this upcoming segment, what Dr. Ruggiero's research on HIV and AIDS has shown. He fought back. He filed a libel suit, which in Italy is a criminal offense punishable with up to 1 year in prison. And that's where we stand. There's been a tremendous outpouring of support. And meanwhile, the anonymous entities have taken down their website, or maybe coincidentally, they really did need to do some sudden Internet reconstruction, but I doubt it. So where we stand now, basically, is we have to wait. Am I correct in that, Professor Ruggiero? Do you think a period of a long time? Time-wise, what do you expect before you get an answer?
We have about 2 deadlines. The first deadline is April 15 or mid of April, when the internal commission that is investigating on whether anything in that letter has any truth. We already know that it hasn't. So by April 15, this commission will issue a report, as it has been correctly stated in the Nature News article. To know about the legal suit, I don't know exactly, and my attorney will keep me updated. However, I am envisaging weeks or months, definitely not years, because especially abroad, there is the perception that Italian justice is extremely slow, and this might be for politicians or other people, but in reality our judicial system is very efficient. And therefore I expect to hear something in a matter of weeks or months at the longest.
Did you ever have a moment in all of this where you felt alarmed or anxious? What were your feelings when you saw this?
Well, I can tell you that my initial feeling was that of surprise, because being a rethinker or a dissident or a denialist, you choose the word, I am accustomed to ferocious criticism. And I don't welcome them, of course, because I always try to have a dialogue. And as a matter of fact, I am invited at the International AIDS Society meetings, and I go there, and when I present my data, I discuss calmly with all my colleagues. So all these attacks, they come from non-scientists or people who don't know what we are doing. But I am accustomed at critics, so it's not something that surprises me. However, these defamatory letters sent, because in the internet era, it is very, very simple to send letters to thousands of people, politicians, newspapers, rector, and so and so. So first reaction was surprise. However, soon thereafter, reaction now, as of today, is that I am overwhelmed with joy, because as I told you, I did not expect that so many people whom I had never met felt in complete intent, without letting me know, to take paper and pen and write to the rector whom they never met, of course, in support of my person, my science, my research, and my freedom of teaching. And I can tell you this. Of course, I will not disclose the details because of the respect for the privacy, but one person from that HIV Forum website, now closed, from which the anonymous letter started, wrote me today in a signed email saying that she or he disassociated completely, and even though she or he disagreed with all my views, which is something that I accept, could not tolerate the tone, and so disassociated from that forum. So this made me extremely happy, because again, this reassures me that most people, both HIV people, HIV positive people, scientists, or just lay people who know nothing about all these issues, are reasonable and understand perfectly the difference between a criticism and a slander. So today I feel extremely at ease, because on one side we have an anonymous letter from a website that is being closed, sent to the rector. On the other side, we have an international petition online where people sign with their real names in my support. And we also have several individuals who wrote real letters to the rector with their real names in my support. So actually, there is no comparison between the accusations and the support. It's 1,000 to 1 or 10,000 to 1. So that's why I feel so calm, so serene, and so happy that all this is happening in a sense, because it demonstrates that most people are really wise and they can distinguish. They cannot be indoctrinated.
That's right, and people, most people, healthy people, love freedom. freedom. It's about.
Yes.
That's what this is about. We don't have that much time left, and we're going to have to handle this superficially. But I want to just ask you to describe how you got onto the path of research. I know from being in daily communication with many people who are HIV positive, immune compromised, struggling with figuring out what it all means and how to heal. Most have understood in recent years that the locus of healing is the gut, the stomach, the intestinal, not the stomach, the gut is a better word, the intestinal tract, where it turns out the immune system is located and where immune cells are generated. And this was absolutely not known when AIDS first exploded in the 80s. It was believed that the immune system was in the blood, nobody was thinking about the gut and the stomach. Now all this research is, it seems to me, where the two sides are really coming together, the orthodox and the so-called dissident side. Can you just tell us briefly what brought you to that line of research and what your what you think as of today is going on with the stomach, the immune system, and AIDS?
Oh yes, I try to be brief and not to be academic. But I have to tell you that a few years ago, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, a completely new concept came out, something that nobody had ever thought before. That is the human microbiome. That means that if you take a human being and you count his or her human cells, you find a certain number. Then if you count the number of bacterial cells, mainly in the gut, as you say, but also in the skin and in all the other parts of the body, you find that we have 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells. Not only that, if you look at DNA, we have our own human DNA, of course, which contains all the information for our life. But if you look at bacterial DNA, which is in this very moment with me or with you, we have 100 times more bacterial DNA than human DNA. So we can say that we are only 1% human and 99% bacteria, or 1% human, 10% human cells, 90% bacterial cells. Of course, all these bacteria, they are not there just for fun. They contribute to our well-being, or maybe vice versa. We contribute to their well-being, but whatever the case, it is emerging as a new concept, and the NIH is investing a lot in this new concept and in the relationship between all these bacteria, which are called the microbiome, and human health. So this is a completely new concept, and it fits with what you have said. So on one side there is this concept. On the other side there is the immune system. The immune system is extremely complicated. There are many, many molecules regulating all the functions of all the different cell types. We have been studying for the past 3 years one of these factors. Of course, we cannot study all the factors, nobody can. So we concentrated on one factor, which is called MAF, which stands for macrophage activating factor. It is a protein that was discovered about 20 years ago, which stimulates macrophages, which are cells very important in the regulation of the immune system. Then we came across a paper in 2010 that was extremely interesting. It was done by researchers from Canada, the research group of Professor Gregor Reid, and what they did was extremely simple. This has been published in the Journal of Gastroenterology in 2010. In the low-income communities of Tanzania in Africa, so we're talking about some of the poorest area of the planet, where there is a high incidence of HIV and AIDS, and let's not discuss here about HIV in Africa, but just take the data. There is a high incidence of HIV and AIDS. They introduced the local production of probiotic yogurt. That is, they brought with them from Canada the ferments, and then they instructed the women in local kitchen to produce the yogurt for the people who were around those kitchens. They provided this probiotic yogurt done with the ferments that they had brought with them from Canada for several kitchens. And after 3 years of observation, they drew their conclusions, which have been published. And their conclusions are astonishing. The conclusion is that consumption of probiotic yogurt locally produced by local women in low-income communities raised CD4s. You all know what CD4 cells are, how important are they even to define AIDS. AIDS, it is defined by a low number of CD4 cells in HIV-positive people. Mm-hmm. So consumption of probiotic yogurt on a daily basis raised CD4 count to an extent comparable to that of antiretroviral drugs. Of course, the study was done extremely well. Some people were on drugs, other people were not, so they could draw all the comparisons, and the study is a very powerful one from the statistical point of view. And they demonstrated this, that the production, which was very cheap, of course, and very easy to be done, and with no side effects, raised the CD4 cells. At that point, we simply reasoned, how has this happened? How could this happen? And we thought that maybe in that probiotic yogurt, this macrophage activating factor was spontaneously generated as a part of the fermentation process. So this was our hypothesis, and we tested this hypothesis, and we brought our results at the very, very orthodox International AIDS Society Conference in Rome last July. And I think I gave you the PowerPoint presentation that we presented there. Yeah. That's what we have done, and everybody in the world is very excited at this approach. We know that other low-income communities in Africa are adopting this approach. Of course, somebody might not be very happy of these results, and I remember I had sent you by email a comment of Professor Reid, who was wondering how was it possible that, having been demonstrated that this approach was feasible, it was not pursued. Of course, this is a rhetorical question, and I think you all know the answer. So that's where research is moving. Of course, this is not the only field of research, but one important field of research is to test the effects of probiotic fermented products. We're talking about yogurts, we're talking about kefirs, so all these types of fermented milk products in reestablishing two things, the immune system and the microbiome. So probably the two things go together, and the reestablishment of the two things definitely brings benefit, not only to people living with HIV/AIDS. I can tell you that there is research going on the use of probiotics in cancer and many other chronic diseases. The research has just begun, so we're just at the beginning, and it will take time before being able to assess whether these will be complementary to other therapies or will be substituting for other therapies. We don't know, but it's a very exciting time now, and these developments are very, very exciting.
Would I be overstating if I said the focal point of mainstream AIDS research is moving slowly away from the virus and to the immune system, and within the immune system to the gut health?
No, you are probably not overstating this, and it is, I would simply rephrase your words and say it is beginning to move. When we went in Vienna in 2010 to present our data again at the very orthodox International AIDS Society Conference on AIDS, there were several communications that were exploring the possibility to use different approaches which are under the generic term of immune therapy, that of course they have the goal to empower the immune system so that the immune system can fight the virus or whatever other disease. Actually, all these approaches, they are perfectly consistent with the word of Professor Montagnier, who said that you can get rid of the virus within a few weeks if you have a good immune system, implying that if you make your immune system good, if it wasn't, for whatever reason, that will have a fight in the virus. So here in Italy, we have a very, very interesting trial with a so-called therapeutic vaccine. Of course, the therapeutic vaccine is not a real vaccine in general terms, because a real vaccine is something that you take before having the disease. So a real vaccine cannot be therapeutic, however it is called like this, and the therapeutic vaccine that they are experimenting now, it is perfectly consistent with this line of stimulating the immune system. So you're not overstating this. I would simply say that it is beginning to move. If they accept some of our communication at the AIDS conference that will be held in Washington, D.C. next July, and if we go there, I'm sure that we will see more and more scientific communications on this topic.
Because my understanding from Tony Lance, who for me was he pioneered he turned me around. It was many years ago to make me understand that this is where the real research and the real revelations lie in this area here. And he had spent 10 years researching it by then, and he said that there's a 100. I hope I'm not misquoting him here. I recall him saying there was a 100% correlation in the mainstream medical AIDS literature between so-called leaky gut syndrome and progression of illness. So it sounds to me like the setup is perfect for everybody to come together. And he said, I think everybody had pieces right and pieces wrong, orthodox, dissident, everybody. And now we're coming to a synthesis phase. But we still have these hit squads, and somebody's got to pull them aside and give them a little talking to. Dave, we have a couple of minutes left. Did you have anything on your mind?
Yeah. Marco, I'm just wondering for the radio listeners here, if you could characterize the difference between academic and government science and medicine in Italy and the USA.
My experience in the USA is an old one, because I used to work for Barros Wellcome in 1984, actually when AZT was being developed at that time, and then for the NIH in the end of the 80s. And I also worked for the pharmaceutical industry in Italy before being enrolled in university. The difference, I would say, that here in Italy we don't have a strong pharmaceutical industry, and most of the research is funded by the government. Therefore, there is very little conflict of interest. We also have a little money, and this is known, but we try to do our best with the little money that we have. And there is almost no funding, I say almost, no funding from pharmaceutical industries, for the very simple reason, and this is not something to be proud of, but that's the reality, that we do not have a strong pharmaceutical industry here in Italy. So most research, I would say 80% of research in Italy is funded by the government. And in general terms, we would say that, of course, there are exceptions, but in general terms, the grants are being given according to the merit. So I would say 80% or 90% of the grants are given according to merit, and there is almost no conflict of interest.
Where would you prefer to do your research, in the USA or good old Florence?
Oh, that's a very difficult question, and I wish that Florence was in the USA. I don't know, because of course I love this city. I love Italy, of course. I've been born here, and I love the United States as well. As a matter of fact, my daughter is a U.S. citizen. She was born in Silver Spring, Maryland, and she has a blue passport, and I'm very proud of this. And so I love both countries equally. And so I cannot decide. If I could have Florence in the United States, that would be perfect. However, nowadays with the jet lines, with the internet, you see, I'm here in Florence and I'm talking with you, and Celia, you are in Berkeley. I don't know where Celia is. And so thanks to the globalization, this is a positive aspect. However, I love both countries so much that, as one Italian writer said, once you have crossed the ocean, you are always on the wrong side of it. And I perfectly agree, because when I'm here, I would like to be there and vice versa.
Well, I would like to be there. I have a quote here from a man who passed, I admired greatly, we all did. Václav Havel died last year. Keep the company of those who seek the truth. Run from those who have found it. Thank you both so much. Dr. Ruggiero, I insist you come back and talk to us again, will you? Will you come back?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Wonderful.
You have my email. Please let us stay in touch. I really thank you all. I thank you, Celia. I thank Dave. And I thank all the people at the radio who made this possible.
I think we're going to have a very wonderful spring 2012. To be continued. I'm Celia Farber. This is Radio Free Science on the Progressive Radio Network. My co-host, David Rasnick. We will be back next Friday at 3 p.m.